Welcome to the 19th episode of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, we will talk about what we like about our friendly local game stores, our FLGS.
Nice.
In case you were wondering what that meant. I'm Adam.
I'm Matt.
And, we're the people at Milk Can who make, we're some of the people at Milk Can who make GameFor, the app for connecting tabletop gamers. You can find it on Amazon, or no, you can't find it on Amazon, but you can find it on iOS and Android, and also on the web.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. What have you been doing since our last episode, hobby-wise?
So I finally had my first official session, so not session 0, session 1
of Lancer.
Lancer.
Which is an RPG.
Yes.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, so we got to do a bit of role-playing and then our first battle. We ended up, contrary to my last impression, we ended up using Roll20.
Okay. Yeah, because you guys were just going to use straight Discord, right?
So we did use Roll20 for the battle map, which was a learning experience. But
how so?
The person running the game had never really used Roll20 before, so there was some stuff like he couldn't understand why we didn't know where the bad guys were. Well, they were still hidden. So
sure, yeah. I mean, you have to have tools like that allow you to do. Yeah, like all the different stuff.
Right.
You know, these guys are hidden. This is a hidden door, stuff like that. And if you don't,
So, but yeah, it was interesting. We figured out some mechanics that we liked. He found, there was one mechanic he used for the bad guys, and they were basically all semi-invisible or like transparent. So, it basically was a 50-50 chance to even try to hit them.
Like the Predator?
Yeah, which really slowed things down.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we realized that wasn't a good idea because he kind of had almost like a horde of bad guys.
So you got a whole bunch of bad guys, but you only hit them 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is problematic.
At best.
At best, right.
Right. So, yeah, but we had a good time.
That's good.
And then my 3D printing I've started printing out my D&D buildings finally, because I did it at Kickstarter, probably almost 8 months ago.
Okay.
For a lot of D&D buildings. They're still coming out with, I think they're only about 60% done with the designs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I started printing out.
At your particular Kickstarter level?
There was only 2 levels. So there was like a hobbyist, and then there was like a retail, so you could resell the stuff.
Gotcha.
So I get basically everything.
Mm-hmm.
Building came out phenomenal.
Yeah. No, you brought it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah, the roof came out really good too. I don't think I brought that in.
No, you just brought the bottom part.
And then started printing the second one because I'm printing them basically at miniature quality, so they take a long time to print.
Mm-hmm.
About 40 hours into the second building.
It's 40.
Yeah.
40 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
My shifting issue came back up, which is basically it thinks that it's printing in one spot, but it's actually
it just moves it over several inches.
Yeah,
that's problematic.
And starts printing, and so it spiders, and so I'm back to the drawing board and trying to figure out what's causing it.
I mean, it's not so bad if it's printing like a 3-hour job. It's when it's a really long job like that.
And it always seems to be right at the end. And the thing is, the rest of it looked absolutely phenomenal.
Sure,
so.
Yeah.
But I'll get there.
Could you, with maybe a hot, like a knife or something like that, could you basically make it look like a ruin? You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Just carve away the top parts.
And that was what I was thinking.
I could, something like that.
I haven't thrown it away.
Sure,
I've kept it, but yeah, it definitely could look like a ruins or something.
Makes sense. Don't forget, kids, when you when something's broken, it can become a ruin. That's kind of actually how ruins get made.
Yeah, I did do time lapsing on this one, so I'd be curious if I look back at the time lapsing if it might give me a clue as what was going on when it did that. But
if you see it in the time lapse and all of a sudden a raccoon comes in and starts messing around and then takes off, I would blame raccoons.
Yeah, trash pandas.
They are nature's little bandits.
How about you?
Me? Well, so let's see. I'm trying to teach myself a new technique. I'm trying to teach myself enamel washes, which are not necessarily difficult, but I think they're a bit of a black art. So I did not want to try them out on models that I really dig, like the first time, I make videos about this on my YouTube channel about not just trying a new technique on a thing that you really care a lot about because, you might screw it up.
You mean like the 200-hour model that you're getting ready to enter into a contest.
Right, yeah. Don't be like, you know what I'm going to do? Oil washes or enamel washes or, whatever. And it's the first time you've done it. So anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm making some practice models. So I'm just taking some old Space Marines that were laying around in the basement and I'm painting them up. And I'm kind of making some quick modifications to them. Like one I'm painting both of them are primed with kind of a bit of a highlight and shadow sort of a situation. I posted something on my Instagram about it. And then, so they're identical that way. But then one of them, I just did all the detail painting in just complete flat colors. So like, part of the gun is silver, part of the gun is red. The thing on their shoulder is like a bone color. Other thing on their shoulder over here is red, that kind of stuff. But no washes, no highlighting, nothing, just flat.
Okay.
And then the other one I did with some washes and some highlighting. And I also did a dry brush of a lighter green over everything, which made it brighter green than you would want for that particular chapter.
Okay.
But the idea is that when you spray it all with this enamel, that's the whole thing, is you put some enamel wash in your airbrush and you spray the entire model. And now it's all brown. And then you wait like 5 minutes for it to kind of set up a little bit, and then you just start wiping it away. And then that way it stays in all the crevices and creases that the cloth can't get into. But so that becomes like a wash and a shadow and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's a different process, and it's supposed to also to some degree be quicker, because you just sort of paint it up and just go psh, and then just wipe it down, as opposed to going through and doing all the washes and all that stuff. But I want to be able to see whether it looks better if I do. It's kind of like when you're using a dishwasher. Like sometimes you can take a dish from the dishwasher, just put it, or to put it directly in the dishwasher, and other times you like rinse it off and get it nearly clean anyway. And the question is whether you get the same dish out. You know what I mean? So if I do the extra work, does it look better after the enamel wash? And if it doesn't look any better than the one that I didn't do the extra work, then you don't do the extra work. It's all about efficiencies. Anyway, so again, been messing with that, and hopefully soon we'll be learning some stuff.
Nice.
And then also I'm getting some 3D printed buildings. I didn't print them, somebody else did. Getting some 3D printed buildings ready for when I was at Las Vegas, at the Las Vegas Open. There was a company there called Badger Airbrushes, and they make airbrushes, and they also make, I think, compressors, and they also make a bunch of different types of paints and things like that for airbrushes. And they have a new line of primers that are designed for 3D printed stuff.
Yes, I have mine on order.
Nice. So you spray this first step on, and it's supposed to help get rid of the little kind of striations that you get in filament printing. It's supposed to sort of smooth that out a little bit. And then you spray either a white, gray, or black that comes also in that kit over the top of it. It's designed to stick to that first layer. So I'm getting some Star Wars terrain stuff for Star Wars Legion sort of set up so that I can start trying that out. That's the plan, at least. Yeah, that's pretty much about it, I believe. And then we've got a question this episode. So
yes, we do.
Yeah.
Some from the listener Kieran, I think. Kieran?
Yep.
Okay. Just catching up and listening to the Games Become New Again.
The episode of our like Fireball Island and all that stuff.
Right,
yeah.
right, yep. And it got me thinking about that there are a myriad of titles, but at the core, they all work off of a dice or card draw mechanic. Do you think that this mechanic can make or break a game, and that we will come to a point where the games just end up being a skin to the mechanic, and then becomes a downside to the games we play?
This is a good question. You and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. So the idea is that, basically board games specifically, it's either a dice thing or it's a card thing, and there's other, variations here and there and stuff like that. But especially with board games, you have specific categories. Like if you go into Board Game Geek, they will say, "Oh, this is a worker placement game. This is and you've got all these different types
of control."
Right. Yep. So it does seem to some degree as if the board games, and to a degree most of these types of games, collectible card games, miniatures, RPGs are a little bit more freeform. But of the other three genres, they do all kind of either work on a certain
even RPGs,
style.
I would say, because you've got like your D20 systems, and then your D6. Now they've got like the ones that are using like a Jenga approach, where they're trying to use some kind of
Jenga thing.
things get harder as you go. So,
But so a lot of these games are like, oh, okay, well then this game you're either going to pull cards or you're going to throw dice or whatever.
Right.
And that's true. But when we were talking about it, like you brought up the concept of music.
Like music, yeah, you've got a set number of notes, but sometimes there's new instruments that come along, but for the most part, it's just the same stuff. But yet
Different
every song, songs come out, and sometimes they'll sound like all the other top 40 stuff, but then sometimes they'll come out and you're like, I've never heard anything like this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's still. I remember when I first heard Queens of the Stone Age, like the rhythm that they use in a lot of their songs is like a lot of times you can be listening to a song you've never heard of and when like the break is going to come or when and their stuff was just very different than I was used to, and I thought that was very interesting. I brought up the concept of basically Taco Bell.
Yes, I like that one as well.
Right. So there's basically you got your lettuce, your cheese, your meat, you get the tortilla, you got sour cream, and it's just different combinations of that junk put together.
Right.
They keep coming up with new stuff, but they're never like putting
either pizza or chalupa or and
right.
It depends on what they wrap and when they wrap it, and what fries and what doesn't.
In anything there. There's never like they don't ever go, oh, we're gonna throw a rutabaga in this one. No, it's always the same type of stuff, just in different mixtures, and it keeps selling. So, so I kind of have just said that board games are a lot like Taco Bell. I don't know if that's necessarily where I wanted to go with that.
No, probably not.
But nonetheless, I don't know. I think that people have a tendency to be interested in, and this is the reason why games have fluff, for the lack of a better word, or story or a theme, and it's because generally those themes are what draw people in.
Right, and the traditional Euros were very, very abstract.
I would say that's what he's calling the skin here. In this
right. Yeah, so Euros were very abstract, but you've seen, especially in the last 5-6 years, that themes have become much more important. And I think it kind of just ebb and flows. Like I think, we kind of feel like, oh, there's a limited number of mechanics right now. Yeah, and then we'll go to Gamma.
Some always new comes.
Yeah,
up.
We'll go to Gamma or Origins or something, and we'll go, what is this mechanic? It's like. Do
you remember when Dominion came out?
Yeah.
Like there was no other game where you basically just bought a box of 500 cards, and then the way that it worked and everything, people were like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And and then of course, a lot of games came out that were like it, and that'll just keep happening.
Keyforge was 2 years ago, something like that, where everybody and I remember everyone going, "I didn't even know that was possible."
Oh yeah, because the decks are all custom, they all have the same back, like Magic cards. Every Magic card's got the same back. In this situation, your deck has got one set of backs, like
with one name,
and like a procedurally generated like name of your person or whatever. Yeah, and so you can't trade cards and all that kind of stuff. And every deck you buy is procedurally generated name, and the back's already printed on there. And that was not a thing that people could do. I mean, I know we're going to see more and more apps, like companion apps, that especially for board games and things like that, where you're going to be able to play a game against a literal AI to some degree, as opposed to just like a list of rules on a piece of paper that's saying, well, this is what happens when this happens. It'll be a thing where, based off of all kinds of different information, machine learning, who knows, where all of a sudden, you may have actual difficulty where you can ramp up the difficulty, you know what I mean, in a game, so that it's like, well, it knows that you've done this and this, and so therefore it's going to do this in its turn, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think
co-op games.
I think the new Dice Tower, or not Dice Tower, Dark Tower, that they're.
Yeah, the Dark Tower.
I want to say that one of the updates I read was that they're possibly going to open it up so that you could modify the behavior yourself.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, so there's all these different types of things, I think, that are going to keep games going along. It's, people also say that there are no new ideas, under the sun or whatever, but it's just how they, in some situations, get repackaged and moved around, and then eventually you invent a chalupa, and then I eat a bunch of chalupas. That's just kind of the way that works.
But, I think that the mechanic and theme, sometimes, like a lot of your popular games, the ones that really understand how to make a mechanic work well for a theme, or take a theme and pick the right mechanic that kind of complements each other, really make that kind of steps that game out.
With role-playing, because I think that the story is so much more important, the mechanics are, sometimes tertiary in comparison to being secondary. Like, really, the story is so important. The mechanic is kind of like, this could be, like, the storyline here could be for D20, or you could use it for anything. I've seen books before where they're just like, here's your story and everything. Use whatever rules.
But then
you
again,
want.
look at D&D 4th edition, which went over like a lead balloon. So.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So or
the rules can also be a hindrance in those situations, certainly. But yeah,
they use basically almost the same mechanics, but because they tweaked them just right.
Yeah.
People didn't like it.
That's true. So yeah, I don't think that I don't think that we've gone past peak board game. I think that they'll keep making them. Now, that being said, I have a suspicion that of the 6,000, I think it's 6,000 a year.
6 to 8, somewhere like that. Yeah.
Obviously, most of them don't hit. Most of them don't get
right, and there's probably a lot of them that
like
are rehashes of the same themes.
That's
and
also true.
Same mechanics.
Yeah.
But I think your outliers and leading games are going to be ones that are going to be pushing that envelope and reinventing different things.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, totally. So yeah, I think that Kieran, you don't have anything to worry about. Hopefully. You may find yourself playing a game that you're like, boy, this sort of reminds me of this, but that's been going on since they started making board games.
And in some ways, it helps you learn that game a lot faster.
That's also true. It's a very good point. Yeah, like if you're trying to figure this game out and someone can say, oh, it's like this game,
but
and you're like, but this changed, and you're like, oh, okay, that helps me a little bit. And
you can take strategies you've learned and all kinds of fun
there's plenty of companies out there, groups that get together to try to write a game that's very, 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 very different from everything else that's out there, and a lot of times nobody cares because it's too different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're going to make a role-playing game, but you're not going to use any dice, and it's not going to have any like goblins or this, and it's going to
you can't write anything down.
Right, and it's going to have all this crazy stuff, and people are like, I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to kill some goblins and get some gold pieces and stuff. So it depends on the person. Like indie RPGs, many of them are very different than what we consider to be normal RPGs. So yeah,
but sometimes they find that gem. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So Kieran, thanks for the question, and we are going to send you a T-shirt, a limited edition. My question got read on the podcast. A T-shirt, so look forward to getting that. We'll reach out to you and go from there. Let me see what else. What's the next thing that we've got to talk about? I think it's today's topic.
I think so.
Which is about game stores. And your local game store and your hopefully friendly local game store, the FLGS, and what we think about them. So let me see. So I guess not everybody has a game store local to them.
Right. And some have ones that are more of people that didn't know really how to run a game store, or more people that, well, I play games, so I'm going to just open a store and pretty much, don't interact with the customers.
No, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of, that's the issue, is that a lot of times people who run the game store are gamers, and they are very frequently, not always, but frequently gamers first and store owners second. But you do have plenty of decent game stores. You have some that, frankly, the ones that aren't very good have a tendency to close quickly.
That's what I was going to say.
Because it's not necessarily an easy industry to be in.
Right, especially nowadays with online options and everything else. I think that the ones that are lasting at least a year are the ones that are starting to differentiate themselves and really focus on some of the stuff we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you're lucky enough to have a game store in your local area, or a couple potentially to choose from, that's also a great thing. So what type of reasons, like what are the things that we like about game stores, and what do we think is important?
So the number one, convenience.
Yeah, I mean,
like right now, if I want a hobby tonight, and I go, oh, I need some paint,
sure,
because or a brush or a model or 1,000 other things. I don't live anywhere where an online order is going to get to me before the end of the day.
Right. You could leave work and stop on the way home at a local shop, almost on the way home, and pick up a certain thing. Now, obviously, game shops can't keep everything in stock.
No.
There's that, but they do have a tendency, depending on their size, to keep a lot of the things in stock, especially the most popular things. If it's for us, for me, but you as well, the whole concept of being able to go in and get some paint, or whatever hobby supply is super important. and helpful, because there's times when you're like, you're right, you're just about to sit down on a hobby and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm out of, whatever particular shade of purple I need for this thing.
My crazy glue dried up.
Oh yeah, no, the super glue dries up a lot. So yeah, that type of stuff can be helpful and be great to do. Also, maybe you're interested in getting into some other game, or you've got some friends who are starting to play. I know that a lot of people, like for a while, and I don't know if this is still the case or not, but for a while that game Cards Against Humanity was only available on Amazon. That was the only place you could get it, was on Amazon. And I had friends who owned local shops who would go on Amazon, buy it at full price, and then sell it at their store for $5 or $10 more. Oh. And they would sell because people would be on their way to a party and they're like, oh, I want to bring that game that I've heard of. But then they would stop into the game store. And when you tell a person who stops into the game store, oh yeah, no, it's only available on Amazon, then that's not cool. But when you're like, yeah, we got it, then now they're in your store, or if they call ahead, now they're in your store, they know about your store, they might come back later and buy something else, that kind of thing. Now I think you can get it at Target and a bunch of other places. And whatever. Right. But at the time when it was first originally only available on Amazon, then that was what a lot of store owners were doing. And there is something to be said about that kind of convenience, being able to pull in and just like pick up the thing you need when you need it and then go. And I think that's an important thing. What else have we got? We've got knowledge. Knowledge is important because it is... You can do a lot of research on the internet, obviously.
Right. You can YouTube it, and you can blog it, and you can read a lot of opinions, because the internet has some opinions.
Lord knows, yes. But there's something to be said about saying, hey, how do I do this in Dungeons and Dragons? What can I do to my deck for Magic here to make it so it's a little bit more effective with this card? What about, I need a game that's 2 to 5 players, but co-op, because our gaming group gets real shirty if somebody starts to win. So we all need to play against the game, and that works better. And a good game store owner or employee should be at least able to put you in the right direction for that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that stuff can be sometimes kind of difficult to find on the internet. You can probably do it. It'll probably take you more time. But if you just walked into the store and was like, hey, I need to find out more about this, especially like one of our local shops, the owner is big into Magic, and so he's a great resource for strategy, deck building, and that kind of stuff. Oh yeah,
and he likes doing it too.
Absolutely,
which is nice. I mean, any of those stuff that he's into, like I remember when I was playing a lot of Star Wars, X-Wing.
Oh yeah, he's big in X-Wing.
Yeah, too, you're like, hey, I'm trying to use this card. I don't really see the purpose of it. Why would I use this? And then he'll be like, oh, I would use it for this, and then you're like,
right, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Okay.
And that's one of the benefits of having your game store owner actually be a gamer. Like if the game store owner's not a gamer at all, then
that's weird too.
It's cornered. Yeah, it'd be like you own a fishing store, but you've never fished, or don't like fishing, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just it's going to be difficult for you to give that kind of that knowledge, that expertise that is, I think, important when you go into the game store. Obviously, some game store owners are going to just be like, oh yeah, well, we're going to try to sell you whatever we're trying to get rid of, or whatever's best markup, or whatever the deal is, that kind of thing. That happens from time to time. But in general,
they want you to come back and go,
right,
that was an amazing recommendation. What else do you got?
Exactly. Yeah, because if you have a good experience at the store, then you're more likely to come back to the store. That's
and
just
tell
the way
other people.
Retail works in general, and also you're right, tell other people. So that's also a big deal. So. Knowledge is a big thing. Kind of related to knowledge, though, is also discovery. I mean, it's not exactly. It's like if you go in and say, hey, I'm looking for a game like this, and then they say, well, have you tried this? That's kind of a mixture of knowledge and discovery. But discovery, the way we're talking about it, is literally just walking up and down the aisles.
Yeah, there's times, like, I didn't know that there was, so I knew about the monster manual for D&D, but I didn't know about the monster cards, that... a little bit easier, quick reference.
Yeah.
Until I saw them for sale at my local game store and went, well, that looks a lot more convenient.
Like the marketing arm of all of these different game companies wants you to know about everything, but they can't. They just literally can't get everything out to everybody. So yeah, sometimes you're walking up and down I can't tell you how many times I've been walking up and down the aisles of a new store, like a store that I've never been to before. Maybe I'm traveling or something, and seen something that is very interesting to me that I've never even heard of. Maybe it's a hobby supply, like I was in a local store recently and came across AK Interactive weathering pencils. And not only did they have them in little kits where it's like 5 pencils for X amount of money and they're like all, matched to be like rust colors or whatever, but they had a giant honking rack that was just all of the possible pencils for AK Interactive. So you could just be like, I want that one or this one and that one or whatever, as opposed to having to buy in packs. Didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, those types of things, Lord knows I've been watching a YouTube video and someone talks about a product and I go look it up and buy it maybe. And sometimes you end up buying it online because you think maybe you don't have it in your local store or whatever. But I would say probably more frequently I've been walking around a store and come across something that I didn't know existed because all of a sudden it's right there in your face. And I think that that's a big benefit. Now, most stores obviously can't carry everything.
No.
You know what I mean? Lord knows, I don't think any store possible. I don't think Amazon could carry everything.
No, they definitely don't. Yeah.
I mean, but the amount of board games, out there just in any,
But
since I started talking just now, there's been 3 board games that have come out. And so they can't keep that stuff in stock.
But sometimes they carry stuff that has gone out of stock that they don't, you can't buy anymore.
That's true too. Yeah, no, I walked into Pegasus Games in Madison, Wisconsin, probably about 4 years ago. I was down in Madison for some reason, and there was this game. It's a skirmish game that came out, one of those Blue Book games from Osprey, and it was called Rogue Stars, and it's written by Andrea Sfigoli, which I'm mispronouncing, unfortunately. Sorry if he's listening. And he's an Italian guy, and he wrote Four Against Darkness. But he also wrote Song of Blades and Heroes. That's probably what he's a little bit better known for. But he did Rogue Stars for Osprey. And I did not get it when it came out, and it was a relatively short run, but it was super popular because he was relatively well-known and all that kind of stuff. So it was just gone. And they were probably going to make another printing, but I don't know if they ever did, to be perfectly honest. Like, they've reprinted Gaslands tons and tons of times because it sold so crazy. But some stuff they sell out quick, and then they're like, well, if we make another print, it might not sell as much, whatever.
Right.
But I walked into that store, and there it was on the shelf. It had been out of print and couldn't find it any place online for probably 4 or 5 months, but they had a copy sitting there. So,
then the game that I played at a friend's house that was a Kickstarter, but our local store.
Death May Die.
Yeah, Death May
Cthulhu
Die.
thing.
One of the guys at the table went and ordered it off eBay for $200, something like that.
Cripes.
And I was like, ooh, I really like it. I don't know if I like it that much.
You don't know if you have $200 like
but I'm like, and he's like, well, that was the cheapest one. They go up from there. I'm like, well, I stopped at my hobby store on the way home and talked to the owner, and then not about that game. And he just goes, hey, did you see what we just got in?
Right.
Pointed out the game, and
because he had bought the retail level.
Right. And so not only did he have it in, it was basically just about what I would have paid on the Kickstarter for it.
Right.
With the expansion and a bunch of other stuff. Plus I got the, they had the $10 off $100 purchases or whatever.
Oh, yeah. They
so I got that.
Loyalty.
So I got, even more. It was amazing. I walked out of there.
Plus he had the giant model of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
That's the size of a toddler, and you got one of those too, right?
I did not.
Oh, come on.
But at that point, I'm like, maybe.
Put it on the hood of your car.
Yes.
Yeah, no, if you haven't seen, just do a quick Google search for Cthulhu Death May Die?
Yeah,
Death Must Die.
No,
Death
May Die.
And one of the Kickstarter levels was this giant miniature, which sounds like a oxymoron.
Yes.
It's probably easily...
It's a toddler size.
It's not 3 feet tall, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's 2.5.
Yeah.
It's just this massive, giant miniature. Yeah, so you're right. It's the size of a toddler. And you've already got like 3 kids, and you don't need a 4th.
No, not a Cthulhu
won't
one anyway.
Eat much, probably, but yeah.
Well,
yeah.
My soul, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So let me see. So we've talked about convenience, and we've talked about knowledge. We've talked about discovery.
Ooh, this next one I like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so another thing that we talked about, or that we think is important about gaming spaces like this is it's a public space.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that relate to anything? Well, if you meet somebody new to play a game, let's say that you're using, I don't know, like an app like GameFor, and you find somebody in the looking for players area that says, hey, I'm really interested in playing game whatever, and like we've got it built into the app so that you can say, hey, I want to play this game or these multiple games, and also I will play at these local stores.
Right.
And you can highlight multiple of them, several. And then that way the person who's looking at your looking for players listing can see it and go, oh, this person wants to play this game. That's really cool. And also they will play at my local shop that I like to hang out. So let's do that. The benefit to that is that you are then meeting somebody you don't know, but you're meeting them in a public space.
Speaking of getting eaten.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about getting eaten by Cthulhu. And it's important just for safety, honestly, to be able to, whether you're connecting via GameFor, whether you're connecting on other social media or whatever, having just a rando show up at your house is not necessarily a great idea. Or the other way around, showing up at a rando's house for the first time. It's best to get a gauge of a person frequently at a public
space. And sometimes you just don't have the space. Maybe you have a smaller apartment or house, or it's crazy because your kids are all there. And dogs or animals.
Or you just, you're a slob like me, kind of to some degree, and you just don't want people over in your basement.
Cat or dog allergies.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. We got like 4 cats, my wife and I. So, if you're allergic to cats, that ain't going to work out. So having that kind of space is super important, because then that way not only can you kind of you can meet somebody in public and feel safe about it and everything like that, but it's also there's plenty of reasons sometimes when you don't want other people over to your place, or you don't want to go over to somebody else's place, and having the collectible card players are frequently pretty used to playing at the shop. Not all, obviously, because a lot of people just play at home with their friends and whatever, but a lot of those people do. RPGs to some degree, depends on the store. Some stores will have like a secondary room in the back.
It seems like it's becoming more common.
Yeah, I know that one of the stores here does, and another one I know in Oshkosh does.
2 of the ones here.
Yeah, that's right. So having that, because the thing is with role-playing games, it can be a noise issue. Yeah. So you want to kind of be in a separate spot if you can. So that's important. And then having that ability, miniature games, there's a lot of people who play miniature games and war games that play at shops because you've got bigger tables frequently. Frequently there's terrain there already.
Right.
Just the space and things like that. Board games, you get some of that, but it seems board games are a little bit more, I don't want to say insular, but they're mostly played amongst people who already kind of know each other, it seems, because it's got that whole thing where you bring out one game and set it down and go boom, and here you go.
They're easy to transport,
Right, yeah. And it's the only one person needs to bring generally that thing.
Yeah, or a community space. Like, that's the ones are like
sure, if you've got a club or something like that, then definitely there are clubs that get together in different community spaces. Sometimes they get together in stores, but sometimes they get together in places that aren't stores, So, but nonetheless, the public space portion of being a game store is really helpful, especially if you're new to an area and you want to find some clubs and people to start playing more with. It's best to, like, if you find a club or a group on GameFor, you will find that they can't make a public event that is in a private space.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you shouldn't ever see a public event put out by a group that's going to be at Bob's house. And here's the address to Bob's house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, that public group...
Unless the cafe is called Bob's place.
Sure, I think it's a good point. But that group, they can have a private event that just group members can see, and that can be at Bob's house. That's fine. But if a group wants to have a public event, it has to be either in a game store or in an okayed public space. Let's say that your club, for whatever reason, gets together at Applebee's and you guys play Magic. And Applebee's is fine with that because you're eating apps or whatever, half-price apps on Thursday or whatever the hell it is. Anyway, so you can, in the GameFor app, basically say, hey, we want to have this Applebee's out by the highway or whatever be a public place in our group, and then there's a thing directly in there for the administrator for your group to do that. We see it, we go on Google to make sure it actually is an Applebee's and not somebody's garage, and then we okay it, and then you're cool from there. So you've got that public space available, but it's just real quick and easy also to just store, because we've got a database of 6,700 stores. So it's unlikely, although new stores open all the time, and we have missed certainly a good deal. Like when we first launched, we had 5,800 stores in the database.
Yeah, well, we just added 50 last week.
We had 50 new stores last week.
Well,
new,
we
but
got
new to us.
we got a new list sent to us from Gamma.
So that's right. Yeah, that's
Haley,
right. The game manufacturer.
Haley went through and added all the ones that were missing for new members.
Nice. So we're almost to probably 6,800. I bet.
Probably. I haven't run the numbers in a while.
So since we've launched the app, which has been a little over 2 years, we've added almost 1,000 stores. Either new stores that have opened, stores that we didn't know about when we initially did it. Stores also closed as well.
Yeah,
too,
we've removed those as well.
So the stores. It's an important aspect of the store is the fact that it's a public place and you can come there and play and meet people and you know, and then eventually you can become friends probably, and then you can hang out at each other's houses and whatever. One of the last things I think is probably events. Speaking again of coming and playing at the store, stores will have events. You'll have, you know, amongst the CCG folks, you've got your Friday Night Magic, you've got pre-releases, you've got releases, all that kind of different stuff. There's usually games and tournaments and all kinds of things going on there that are a little bit more scheduled. You have
Demos,
exactly. It's a great place to go and learn how to play a new game. Frequently
tournaments.
Well, there's that too, but in demos, frequently what happens is that game company gets somebody who is a demo person locally, and then that demo person goes to local shop and says, hey, I'll run demos here for this game. Maybe we'll sell some more games for you and stuff, and that'll be great. And then now you got an event at your store. And so, because the thing is that the store owners can't run all the demos because they've also got to sell things and unclog the toilet and do scheduling and do all that kind of stuff. So finding people who are like street team, demo team, whatever you want to call them, folks for different companies and getting them to come in and run some events from time to time can help just to get people in the store and things like that. So if you're interested in a new game or whatever, going to demos and things like that, stores are a big deal. Tournaments is another thing. I mean, that's also kind of leans into Magic a little bit, but also leans into miniature wargaming. You know, you've got 40K, Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, X-Wing. I'm trying to think about other tournaments that I see here all the time. I haven't seen too many tournaments for Munchkin. The other things that I do see locally at shops too are also leagues. So it's almost like a bowling league, but not quite. Frequently, at least in kind of my area, like in miniatures and stuff like that, there's these things called escalation leagues. And what it is that we're going to start out playing smaller point games. So you're trying to get into either a new army or even a new game, and you're going to play maybe a 500-point game. And then in 2 more weeks, we're going to play a 750-point game. And then 1,000. So the idea is that you don't have to build a full 2,000-point army and then show up to play a tournament. You can start and by kind of chunking it out and building and growing and escalating. And everybody's doing it at the same time.
And you can kind of figure out what you want to build as you're going.
Right, exactly. And you're not having to wait until you get everything finished and then finally be able to start play. You can kind of go piece by piece.
And one of our interviews with, I think it was our first, was before we were officially doing a podcast, but it was still our first video. One thing that still stuck with me is the whole, like, you know, going to a party is a lot more fun than throwing a party.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Same thing with game events.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. She was talking about, in that interview, she was talking about how, like, that some of their Magic players and stuff like that would be like, well, I can just have a bunch of people over to my house and we can do a pre-release or whatever. And they're like, well, not a pre-release.
Or drafts or something.
Or drafts and stuff like that. But it is
there's work.
There's a bunch of work. And if you could just do that at the store, and then it's way easier. So, yeah, those types of events are also... that's what the store is there for.
Right.
If they're doing it right, in my opinion.
Right.
So that
you can absolutely do it with your friends, but getting everyone together at the same time.
Sure.
Prepping tables or cards or whatever you're getting ready.
You have to clean your bathroom.
And then cleaning before and after, snacks, food.
Oh, yeah. You know, and so the concept of having these types of events, like if the store's really event heavy, which a lot of the more successful stores have a tendency to be, from what we've seen at least, that kind of thing is really a big deal. So that's important to get people in the door, and all these different types of events. And then, of course, you know, letting people know about the events. Hello, GameFor. That's another great thing that we can do. Stores can become verified for free. They just need to contact us down at the bottom of our main webpage, and then they can find how to get verified for free, and they can start putting their events in there, and people who are using GameFor in their local area can find their events and all that kind of stuff.
And they can add more than themselves. It doesn't have to be just you can have multiple employees' accounts.
Right. Yep.
So if there's an event manager, or like if say your friendly local game store is like, I'm just too busy to put the events in there.
Sure.
You can say, well, I could do it for you, and if they might be open to that, and give you access to enter the events for them.
Yeah, it's not just the owner of the store who has an account. You can have the owner of the store to have an account as the admin, but then you can have your employees underneath you, and then they've got only certain kind of permissions, or not the full thing,
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. But they can put in events, or if you had somebody who just wanted to volunteer and says, "Look, I'm running these events anyway for you for this. I'll just put the events in." You could give them the access to do that as well, and it's on their own password, so it's not a worry about that. Yeah, there's a lot of features to that, and if you're interested, please contact us about that stuff. So yeah, that's I think that's. Do we have anything else about why game stores are awesome?
I think that was pretty much it.
As much as we've got, at least.
But I bet we'll
today.
think of like two things as soon as we stop.
That's very true. B, if any of you listeners/viewers out there, if you've got any ideas about why you like your game stores, you could leave them in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or you could shoot us an email at podcast@iamgamefor.com. It's the thing, and I've said this for a long time, is if you decide that you're just not going to support your local store, then don't be surprised when it goes away. I mean, and that's the sad truth, but that's what it is. Now, again, like I've said, because I did a video about this myself on my own YouTube channel about this quite a while ago, but if you don't like your local store and you never go in there, I'm not telling you have to support it. I don't wear dresses, so therefore I don't go into the dress barn, and if the dress barn goes out of business, which I think it did, at least in my town,
possibly,
that's technically not my fault. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But if you go into your local game store all the time and play, and Friday Night Magic and different events and all that stuff, but you buy all your stuff online, then don't be surprised when your game store goes away.
Right,
and you don't have any
no
place to play.
Yep.
Exactly. So that's really kind of the moral to that story. All right. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player, or just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@iamgamefor.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, technically TikTok. And lastly, to find out more about the GameFor platform designed to connect tabletop gamers, please check out our website at www.iamgamefor.com. That is www.iamgamefor.com.
Thanks.